Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out on another windy, wet Indian Valley week. Seems to be our theme this year, obviously. I just wanted to run over a couple points before we get started tonight. This is our second attempt at this. You will notice that John Chambers isn't here, or John from Chambers is not here. He did this for us last time. We believe that a couple board members and a couple staff members will be able to handle the presentation very well, and hopefully it's enough information for you guys to feel good about the project moving forward. You will see tonight's plan is very similar to the one in the past in April, both in size and objectives. However, we did take your feedback very seriously this time. We tried to make some adjustments based off that feedback, and that's the plan we're going to present tonight to you. I ask you all that you keep an open mind going forward with this, all the facets of the project tonight. There are some situations and items that might not fit your usage of the club, but I assure you that we pulled these from the strategic plan, and by you, the members, either through the strategic plan, serving on that, focus groups, and other committees as well. There's a lot of info tonight. We ask that you hold your questions to the end. If there's something really important, tell the neighbor next to you so you don't forget it. Write it down on your phone, whatever it is, but we need honest, open, transparent questions at the end of this so that everybody feels comfortable moving forward and we can get a positive vote going through this. So let's get started. Tonight's agenda, I'm doing the welcome and overview now. You're going to see Mike Giuffre come up and do the golf course plans after myself, and then you have clubhouse plans by Eric Beck, financial review from Fickenscher. Jim will stay up and do the conclusion and timelines, and we'll do a question and answer, which I'll come up and do that afterwards. There is an exit survey. We need you to do that for us if you can. It's only going to take a couple minutes, but it's critical for the information we need so that we can get a ballot to you, adjust the plan if we need to, and get it back out as soon as possible. Some of you may remember this from last presentation. These are the steps that we've taken to come up to where we are today. We started with facilities review. Then you move to the strategic plan, all the way back down to where we got to a membership vote, which did not happen with a yes, so we move over to the no category. So the membership survey was critical. We thank you very much for completing that. We took that information and we spent some time over the last couple months on top of that with outside contractors and chambers, detailing the club's construction costs. We wanted to make sure we had numbers that were very accurate so that we could present those to you tonight, and we feel very confident and accurate with those numbers right now. Since Mike Giuffre joined our team, he sat down with Andrew Green, the golf course designer, and their drone, and they spent some time out there reviewing the golf course plan. They got it, lucky enough they got it on a rainy day that they were able to see a lot of drainage issues out there that weren't in the first plan. That was every day. Yeah, we could actually be up here probably debating if we should join to a yacht club or a beach club instead of a country club at this point in the year. But we have the financial review analysis, which was done by our financial, with Jim Fickenscher and the finance committee along with Suzanne. They did a great job restructuring that, looking at that, making sure that we were in an area that we feel comfortable and the members should feel comfortable paying. We moved to the revised project plans, and now we're back over here to the informational meetings. After this, the feedback, the exit survey, we're going to adjust the plan if we see something that jumps out at us. We'll get it back out to the membership brochure and membership vote as soon as possible. We're looking hopefully early January, no later than that, or we run into problems with scheduling the golf course work into 2020. These are the survey results that I just mentioned. We're going to start with the golf course elements here. Basically, what you're going to see here, the key takeaway message is the golf course plans were overwhelmingly accepted by members. Even the no voters you're going to see like the plans. Over here, bunkers, drainage, all things that we know need to be addressed. Moving to the clubhouse, and you're going to see the no voters really did not like the idea of the porte cochere and front entrance, redoing it. The location of the bar from one side of the room to the other didn't fit well with a lot of members. And you can see there's other, obviously the restaurant member and restaurant bar area, main lobby, deck floor, that kind of thing was all down in the lower part of this thing. When you shoot over from the member restaurant bar, you're going to see the no voters seem to really like that idea, or the yes voters seem to really like that idea. The banquet, that's an obvious one, and location of the bar wasn't that high. The main lobby entrance wasn't that high, and you'll see the deck floor was down there at the bottom as well. Financial plans, the no voters really thought that the project's scope might be a little large and weren't comfortable maybe with the assessments being too aggressive. But you come back over to the yes voters and you're going to see that most of them agreed with the upfront assessments, the 12 months to pay it off, and a lot of the financial stuff that went along with that. The board's vision of this project. So basically where we are here, there's no shortage of needs. We all know, stand on the first tee box, you can see cracks in the tee box. You walk down the first cart path and you see that there's damage in the cart path. You know the bunkers are bad, you know the drainage is bad. All of this on our golf course all needs to be addressed. This plan doesn't address all of those needs, but we feel like it does accomplish a good chunk of that. You're gonna see here, it's 13 years since we've done anything. New practice facility, pool, tennis courts, that was 13 years ago. We're filming this tonight for YouTube, I believe. We're going to post this on YouTube, and I don't know if you guys, everybody knows YouTube, obviously, right? Well, it was created 13 years ago. It's been that long since we've done anything around here at all. 17 years since we've touched anything in the clubhouse, other than these window treatments and painting the chandeliers. We've really done nothing inside the clubhouse since then. We believe that the biggest impact and long-term success for the club with this project, we're trying to get member recruitment and member retention. We need new members and we need to keep all of you here. So adding value through the clubhouse, through this project, through the golf course, any way we can is going to be what we're looking for. We're also looking to leverage the banquet facilities and subsidize our member costs. So events don't keep rising, the cost of events don't keep rising, member guests, holiday parties, all of those things. We need to keep those down to where they're at as low as possible for all of us. And then we believe that a reasonable member assessment combined with the current debt capacity means that a major renovation project is feasible. We definitely think that this project works. We've tested the numbers, we've looked at the construction numbers, we feel that the assessments are fair, and we really think this project is something that we can all support and get behind. The overview of the changes, what you're going to notice in this, they're very similar. However, we did revise the golf course project. It's now representing 45% of the total spend as opposed to 35% of the total spend, something we saw in the survey results, something we heard from a lot of members. So we try to get those numbers as close to even as possible. We maintain the investment in the clubhouse. We'd like to keep that number exactly where it was because there was quite a few needs here that we need to address. We eliminated the front new entrance. We eliminated the resurfacing of the deck floor, all things that were called for in the survey, and we increased the investment in the banquet facilities, again, requested in the surveys. And then the new bar in the pub, moving it across the room, we felt wasn't necessarily accepted by you, so we thought we still want to put a new bar in there, but we're going to keep it in the general location that it's at. One last thing that I just wanted to say before I let Mike come up and do it, but the honest feedback. I do need questions. We need questions at the end of this. If you feel that you don't want to ask questions in front of everybody, it's important, at least come up and ask us afterwards, but we definitely need a good feel tonight of what's moving forward. Mike Giuffre.
Thank you, Mr. Cantwell. Thank you all for coming out this evening for this informational meeting. I think it's super important for the golf course and where the golf course is headed. But it all starts out just, our goal is to provide you a superior golf experience on the golf course day in and day out. And to do that, we really need to address some issues, infrastructure issues in the golf course that really, the golf course has great bones. I mean, if you go around this golf course, it's really solid. And what we have to do is we've got to go in and take care of some of the older infrastructure that's starting to deteriorate and cause issues on the golf course in a way that doesn't allow us to provide you a superior golf experience day in and day out. It takes an inclusive team. It starts with you and the members, and my hat is off to each and every one of you for the time and effort that you've put into the long-range plan. I know there's been a lot of work that goes into this day in and day out, but in the end, you are the ones that are going to be using this facility, and your input is very important to this. The Board of Governors was, the work and effort that's gone into that. The Green and Golf Committees, over the short time I've been here, we've met many times discussing the different needs on the golf course and really trying to prioritize them to ensure that we're doing the right things for the golf course, for the bones of the golf course. The General Manager, golf professional, myself, and then Andrew Green, our architect, who's in the back of the room back there. Andrew, take a bow for us. He's put a lot of time and effort into it, and I've worked with Andrew over the years on other jobs, and I'm telling you, you're in great hands as far as the architect goes. A little bit about my experience. I've been in the business for 39 years in golf course maintenance. I'm a graduate of Penn State University, 34 years as a golf course superintendent. 30 of those have been in the private club setting. I've done 2 total new construction golf courses, and I've done 5 renovation projects at 4 different golf courses in my career. The very interesting thing to me is the second one from the bottom, the Gold Course at Congressional Country Club, really lines up very close to what we're talking about doing here at Indian Valley Country Club. It really focused on the drainage of the golf course. It focused on rebuilding all the bunkers, which were deteriorated, very similar to what these bunkers are in some pictures you'll see later. That golf course went from not being rated by Golf Digest to the 4th best club in the state of Maryland, or 4th best golf course in the state of Maryland. And even better than that, the member usage of that golf course went up much higher. The blue course obviously was a tournament golf course, but the gold course was a real gem, and getting in there and doing that infrastructure work allowed us to bring that out in that golf course. And I think you have the opportunity to do the same thing here at Indian Valley Country Club because the bones of the course are so good. A little bit about Andrew Green. As I mentioned earlier, I have worked with Andrew in the past. He was actually involved in some of our renovation at Congressional Country Club. But probably the biggest thing that Andrew is really an expert with the original architect of this golf course, William Gordon. And I think he brings a lot to this club that your everyday architect is not going to bring. Many of you know White Marsh Valley Country Club, and if you've been there this year, you've seen the work that he's done over there. And he's really taken that golf course and really raised its level. And I think you're going to see the same, I know you're going to see the same thing here. Replacement of all the bunkers, same as the last time this was presented, so I'm going to go through this a little bit quickly, but these are actual pictures that I've taken on the golf course since I've been here. And you can see when we get any kind of substantial rainfall at all, the bunkers wash out. You see what we have underneath is this material starts to work up into the sand, and we end up with a real contaminated sand day in and day out. It's almost impossible to rake the bunkers without pulling stones up. Not to mention you playing out of the bunkers and those stones being in the way of you trying to play a shot out of the bunkers. The next thing is those stones work their way up onto the greens when you hit shots out of those bunkers. And then when we come out the next morning to mow greens in the dark with lights on, we don't see all those stones. They damage our mowers and they can damage the greens. So it's very important that we take care of this issue where this material is moving up into the sand. You know, golf is a game that's played outdoors. There's lots of wildlife running around on a golf course. Well, we got our critters too. We've got foxes that love to just dig holes in our bunkers, and we're going to address that in this bunker renovation so that they cannot burrow through the sand and then up underneath the soil into the green where we see the cave outs along the green edge. In the middle, you see Ryan Martin, our esteemed assistant superintendent, reaching in there trying to pull one of those critters out. No, I'm kidding. No. He's just actually fixing the bunker. So, but I thought that would get your attention. I didn't want anybody to fall asleep on me. But this is something that none of you probably see every day. Every time it rains, we have to send a staff out of 6 to 7 people just to pump the bunkers out so that we can rake the bunkers so that you can play golf. You don't see us out there because usually we're out in front of play. But as you can imagine, this year it's been crazy with all the rain we've had. But even without substantial heavy rains, we get this puddling in all our bunkers every day, that we get any kind of rain at all. So we're wasting labor that should be spent on conditioning the key areas of your golf course, like your greens, your tees. We're wasting labor just pumping water out of bunkers so that we can get them raked, and then we're getting to the other things on the golf course, which we've got to fix this so that we can consistently take care of other issues that we have on the golf course. So every existing bunker will be replaced, rebuilt. And then there will also be additional bunkers as part of the master plan that will be installed throughout the golf course. Every bunker will be reshaped, and that bunker will be tied in properly to the green so that we can mow evenly around the greens. Right now we've got a lot of places where the green and bunker face are hinged, and when we get up there with a mower or a weed whip, it ends up getting scalped because the tie-in doesn't flow well, and it ends up getting damaged by the mowers. That's a very important part of this whole scenario. We need, as mentioned earlier, we need to get rid of the standing water in the bunkers. So drainage will be added to every bunker, and the drainage will be tied into larger pipes that are going to take that water off the golf course to the streams and ponds throughout the property. Talked about our critters a little bit, and this capillary concrete is something that is going to address that issue. This is a product that's put in as a liner. It's almost like a gunite material. It allows water to permeate through, but it's hard enough that an animal can't dig through it. And it also is a product that then the sand is put over the top and the drainage is installed as well. And then obviously we'll replace the sand with new sand in all the bunkers, and it'll be a high quality angular manufactured sand, so you don't get a fried egg lie. It plays well in dry conditions as well as wet conditions, and there's a lot of testing that goes into that, and we'll be doing all that testing to make sure that the sand that we're selecting is a sand that is fair for play on a day-to-day basis. So this is just a picture of the capillary concrete. The gray material on the right side of the frame is the underlayment that goes down on top of the subgrade, and then the sand gets placed on top of that. Some of the bunkers, this is what number 8 looks like now, but when Andrew does his magic, you're going to see how the bunkers tie in so much better to the actual movement in the greens. They fit in well. And then obviously this would be a new bunker on that hole. Number 10 bunkers, this is what you see today. And again, once Andrew finishes his magic, you see how that bunker ties in to the movement in the green. And it's an ability, it's set up so that we can maintain those surrounds. If we get rid of the creek, then we're going to really have drainage issues. We've got to take that water someplace. And this is a big part of recapturing the greens on holes 1, 2, 13, and 17, part of William Gordon's work. The neat thing that this club has done is they have the actual drawings from William that we can use to ensure that we're putting these greens back to where they were. So we will reshape them to the original design of William Gordon. We'll design in the bunker complexes to fit into all those greens with the new shapes. We're going to have to modify some of the existing irrigation because it's going to be inside the green cavity, so we'll have to go in and move those heads out. We have heads right now that are in greens themselves, which we shouldn't have. And then we'll resod those greens. So sodding rather than seeding is a big plus from the standpoint of once the green is constructed, then we can get the sod in place, and it just secures the whole green, and you don't have issues of seed beds washing out and the such. The neat thing is last fall, the maintenance team started collecting aerification plugs, and they built a 100,000 square foot nursery to be able to use for this project. So we already have in place at the maintenance facility 100,000 square feet of Poa bentgrass sod that came right out of your greens here at Indian Valley Country Club. The neat thing about that is whenever you do any greens renovation work, you want to try to keep the grasses consistent that you're tying into the original grasses. If you go with straight bentgrass, it looks like you've added on to the green. But having that same grass and doing that work ahead of time is a big plus for this project. But this is what I'm kind of talking about with our greens have ended up really rounding out over the years. This was the original shape of William Gordon's idea of what the first green should look like. So that's the kind of work that you're going to see taking place with the new greens going back the way William intended them to look. be redesigning the 17th hole. This is something that you discussed at the last meeting as well. And what I want you to keep in mind with this picture is keep your eye on this side of this fairway edge. This next photo is going to be what it'll look like when it's done. But you can see how much this fairway is shifted this way. The trees are obviously gone, but it gives you a much better alignment from your tee shot. And you're not having to hit it way over to the right to stay away from those trees. Drainage is presented in April. Drainage, we need it. There's just no two ways about it. These, again, are photos of this golf course that you probably don't see because you're not out here when it's pouring rain and first thing in the morning. But this is number 10, and water just streaming across number 10. This is number 7 green, and you can see how the water comes all the way across from 3 and works its way in front of the green and approach. That area stays totally wet. I think some of you probably thought I was crazy when I first got here. I had more ground under repair on this hole than any place you've probably seen. This is the water that works its way all the way from number 12 across 13 and 14 and is actually coming down to the 18th tee wall is right over here. So that's the kind of water that we've got to get off the surface, get underground, move out of the way so that we can maintain your golf course at a level that you can play the golf course day in and day out and can be proud of. This is number 18, right down the middle of the fairway. Somebody said they didn't like the stream at number 10. We need to do something with this. But this is what happens. We have the standing water, the turf just deteriorates. We have to create an environment for healthy turf. We don't have that. Until we put this drainage in the ground, this is what you can expect to see every time you get these situations, is dead grass. And this is what the drainage kind of looks like. We're going to be putting catch basins in to catch that water before it goes across the fairway. So obviously water drains across this way on this hole. We'll have a catch basin here to catch that and move that out. Then we'll, in these key landing areas or key approaches, we'll be installing this type of drainage, which ties into the bigger pipes that go off the golf course to our streams and ponds. And this drainage will create an environment where we can provide you healthy turf and we can condition it in a way that you can play off of it day in and day out. Right now, we can't do that. As we walked around the golf course, when I first got here, walked around with Andrew and the Green Committee members and Eric and Thomas, there was a big hole in the drainage out there. We didn't have covered 1, 2, 10, 18, that area of the golf course that's right out there. And you've seen it all summer long, all that water across there. We went ahead and added that to the, and then we also beefed up the drainage at 14 and 15. And then just to give you an idea, this is what I'm talking about. This whole corridor right here originally didn't have drainage worked in the plans, and we've addressed that. We're catching water in catch basins before it goes across the fairway, and we're moving it down to streams. Same thing over here at 2, that's coming down to this stream that everybody wants to get rid of, but we need that, so that's one of our biggest pipes we got here, and I need to get some bigger pipes that tie into that. Obviously on 15 we've had that area right in the middle of the fairway at the crest of the hill, and what's happening is the groundwater is following the shale, and where the hill crest, it's coming out of the shallowest point, surfacing there, and then just runs over the top. We're going to capture that water with pipes and move it underground down to the stream in front. And then 14, I think everybody in this room knows how bad 14's been. And what we've done is we've beefed up that drainage. There was drainage planned to pick up with the main pipe coming all the way down here and dumping out. But we're also going to be collecting water that's coming out of this area. We've got seepage that comes out of this area. We'll be catching it with this. So this is all new drainage that we've added there. Upsizing the main pipes, we've got to make sure our main pipes that are going into the streams, the outfalls, are big enough to handle all the smaller pipes that will be tying into them. We don't want to just have all that water get in a pipe and then get condensed so it can't move through. So we're going to be beefing up those outfalls to up to 24 inches. This will also allow us, because drainage is never done. Drainage is ongoing all the time. And if we don't have to be pumping bunkers every day, then our team can go out at second assignments and add little drains here and there, tying them into these pipe systems, this infrastructure, so that it continues to make the golf course play better and better every day. It's about doing the job right. We need to create the best possible infrastructure for long-term sustainability. And that's what it's all about. We've got failing pipes out there. We don't have enough pipes. We've got undersized pipes. And you've got great water features to take all this water too, but we're just not getting it there. So there's the creek again. Speaking of creeks, we're going ahead and going back to looking at the creek bed from 12 down to 11. Again, a creek bed is going to move water much more efficiently than any pipe ever could. And what's happening with that pipe that runs from 12, it's just deteriorating, it's rotting. It's a metal pipe. We have sinkholes occurring following rainfalls that all of a sudden, that's covered with sod, but if somebody stepped on that before the hole appeared, you could really get hurt out there. And this is what's happening, is that water just gets choked off before it comes out of that pipe, and it creates a real mess. So to improve the efficiency of that system is to go back to a stream bed. The stream is going to move the water more efficiently than anything else. You can see how the stream does that in front of 1 and 10. This is going to do the same thing. We're going to bring it behind the 13th green, and then it'll come down here and tie into the existing stream. This tee is not part of this phase of the construction, but so that stream will come back through here like that. It's all about creating, hitting that zone of maximum efficiency out on the golf course. We need the industry standard. Everybody's striving to be way out here doing all these gimmicky things, but really what we want to focus on is we want the highest return on our investment. We want to be right at the top of this peak. Being out here, we're going to be wasting foolish money. So what we really want to do, improving the efficiency and precision with these key inputs that we're designing into the golf course. So with these additions, originally the project was a $1.2 million project, and by adding these three things, additional drainage, the creek bed, and upsizing the pipes, we're now at $1.4 million. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'm turn it over to Beck, our General Manager.
Tough act to follow, but thank you all for being here and for sitting through this. Hopefully you like what we've done. I want to start by giving a little perspective, which I know Mr. Cantwell did on so the clubhouse plans have definitely been revised since last time around, and that's been done deliberately based off of your feedback. So the survey results were a big motivating factor for that in what you all wanted. So the biggest, most obvious things were the front entry sequence with the rebuilt porte cochere outside, the stairs moving outside and coming into the upper floor, the elevator, the little staircase that went downstairs. All of that was not supported pretty generally through the membership. So we certainly looked at that. The other hot button items were the location of the bar, moving it across the room and blocking that view, blocking those windows off. The other area which we've changed quite a bit is the investment in the banquet facility. So that's a big area for revenue generation. The contribution margin for banquets is about 40%. So that's dollars that goes right to the bottom line. If you look at our banquet revenue over the last 5 years, you see it was climbing, and it's actually been declining the last couple years. There are many reasons for that, I'm sure, but I truly believe that one of them is a declining facility and a place, some deficiencies that we have that we're not quite able to attract all of the business. So we've looked at those as revenue growth opportunities, as well as operational improvements. We've kind of circled back and figured out how the areas work. What are the best ways to use it? If we started from scratch, how would we do it? And try and get some of those elements into it. So the fact that the vote was not approved last time really made us get back into these plans a little bit deeper and question all of the decisions that we made before. As Mr. Cantwell mentioned, we also went through and confirmed the estimates of costs. So as we developed these new plans, we worked with the contractor in the areas of Ada Homes. We also worked with Chambers. So Chambers is still involved in this as for their architect and interior design services. So we used their square foot estimates and shared these plans as they were developed with the local contractor and got very specific numbers. So down to specific chairs and tables, which are in the scope of work. So kind of the range of what we would be doing. So we feel very good about that. All of this is based around making you all happy, providing a better experience for our members, for the guests that come in who are prospective members, creating that impression for new members and their families when they come in, as well as for revenue generation through banquets and all of that. So there are three main areas I want to touch on. The first is kind of that bubble out there where the front entryway. Again, I want to reiterate, none of the work from before is still part of this plan, but we would be doing a facelift through the front lobby, through the stairs, into the lobbies and into the hallways there. So that area is the first impression for people, and we want to refresh it for sure without changing it as drastically as we were. So that's this area here, and all of this area would be touched by kind of a facelift. Second area is the restrooms. If anything came through loud and clear in the surveys, it was that the restrooms need help. So we're certainly still addressing those. So part of that, a complete redo of these two restrooms. The men's room would be expanded as it was in the last plan. Two reasons for that. One is to make it ADA compliant, so it's really a must if we're doing this work, but also to have just the square footage to make an area that's worth visiting. And then the offices. So by bumping the men's room down some, we lose my office. So I've been assured that the position will remain even if the office doesn't. But it's caused us to reconfigure the office space a little bit. So we've done that a little deeper since last time. I think it's a better plan. It's one that actually works for us and something that will work going forward. Also part of this is the ramp, the service ramp, handicap ramp that's off the side of the building. So redoing that so that it's stable for years to come, and also ADA compliant, so it's a handicap entrance. So this is a rendering of the front lobby area. So as you can see, it's the same layout, right? Stairs go down, stairs go up. Walls are refreshed. What you can't see here is that the lighting is redone. Hardwood floors throughout with the runner going up the stairs. So really nice first impression as you walk into the clubhouse, something that we wanted to really improve upon. So I'm going to give a little specific pricing on these areas, but this is for everything that I just spoke about. So the facelift throughout all of those areas, the complete redo of the restrooms, the offices, and the ramp off of the side. So in the last plan, it was $625,000 for this similar scope, or for that area. This time it's about $350,000, so we've been able to trim that back, spend those dollars, I think, a little more effectively. So I mentioned the banquet facilities and the restrooms. So this is an area where we're actually spending a little bit more money, as we see it as a wise investment in an area that certainly could be refreshed a little bit. So two things. One is the facelift, which was part of the plan last time, just kind of freshen it up. But as I said, we've looked at the spaces and how we can use them a little bit better. So right now we have two sides to a really good sized ballroom, two sides that are split right in half. So these two sides are rarely used for separate parties at the same time. There's no flexibility, and it just doesn't work as well as it could. So what we talked about is changing it so it's about 35% and about 65%. So it gives us more flexibility for parties, and just looked at that in a new way. So first and foremost, the bathrooms. They will be addressed as part of this plan, so the restrooms that are here would be redone. So what we've done here is actually move this wall, which is currently kind of splits the room, which is right about here. So this wall would be moving to split these windows here on your left and come across this beam, and a new air wall, a new divider wall similar to the nice one that's in the private dining room instead of this one, would be in here. So a couple things that does for us. It allows us to have a cocktail hour for weddings. We do not have a pre-function space. It's a big deficiency that we have when people come and look at the facility. We have a beautiful space outside, but sometimes it rains here at Indian Valley. So we can't promise that to people, and having this space is it's something that people look for. How many weddings have you been to where the cocktail hour is actually in with the tables in the room? It's pretty rare. So having this wall here would allow us to do about 200 people in this side for a standing cocktail hour, and then would still be able to do about 200 people for a seated dinner on this side with a stage and a dance floor. So that's great flexibility. It also allows this space to be used for, up to 100 for a sit down. So what we've done is eliminated the two bars, which at least need to be redone. So we're taking them out and building a new one in this wall behind you. So eliminating that storage and placing the bar in this room as a centerpiece, as a focal point of this room. So again, you think of a shower for 50 people, a really nice room with a bar in it that works well for that size event. For the other side, we would purchase a portable bar, which we could use and be more flexible. We could use it in the private dining room. We could use it in the big side of the ballroom. Nice thing about this is it doesn't impact the ability to do a party for 300 people, which there are not many spaces around here that can. So when this wall comes down, we still have the square footage to do 300 people with a stage and a dance floor. A couple other smaller changes. The storage area has been eliminated from where the bar would be going. So we've added these on. These are about 4 feet bump outs off of this wall. So it doesn't impact the space too much, but gives us the storage space that we need to work. Doors to the kitchen would be modified, or these would at least. And the private dining room would also be, have a facelift done to it to match the decor through the room. So I have a rendering here, which can give you an idea of the room, right? So it's looking at this corner back at the bar. We're looking at doing hardwood floors, which is what the numbers are based off of, and are not in this rendering. And I think the image of it is good because you can see where the bar would be. It looks a little beefy to me in this, and I think the design of it's a little bit more modern than what we'd be looking at, what would be most effective for us. But you get the idea of walking down the hallway, having the bar, having a nice room with the bar right in the center. So as I said, the investment in this area has been raised from $500,000 to $800,000. When you remember that includes the bathrooms, a complete redo of the bathrooms, building the new bar, hardwood floors throughout, new air wall, the PDR being redone, audio-visual throughout the room that would be needed for meetings and events like that. So big area, a lot of square footage. So the third area is the member dining rooms. So that generally received very good feedback from the survey. I say it's the most memorable, impactful area of the club. I mean, more members spend time in those rooms than anywhere else. That's where you bring your guests to. That's where prospective members go. That's where we sit down with prospective members. It's really the epicenter and can be grown into even more of a social hub for the club. So I've seen that happen at St. Clair Country Club, the club I was at before here. We put about $2 million into the upper floor, which was the banquet space and the dining rooms. We moved the bar to a different room there, to the one that was the most central, and created a big horseshoe bar right there. And it was unbelievable. It changed how people used it. Food and beverage revenues the first 6 months were up 40%, and then we maintained a 30% increase in that. So the dollars are important, but what that means is people are coming to use it. People are bringing their friends. People are proud of it. People want to be there and run into people. So when I talk about revenue in the dining areas, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, your experience is enhanced to where you want to be there. Great restaurants around here, and these improvements will help us be competitive with them. So I think the most notable thing in here is the bar, which I touched on. We heard loud and clear that we didn't want to move it across the room to cover up those windows, that it just didn't seem necessary, and that you're losing the view. But we did think when you're going to refresh that whole room and give it a new look, to be, to have the existing bar, which is nice, where it is kind of a handicap of design. So if we're going to gut that whole room and really give it a great refresh, we want to be able to put things where they should be and do it the right way. So we did move the bar from its current location, kept it along the same wall, as I'll show you. So this is the layout of the proposed dining room. So if you walk in here from where the hostess is into the room, the bar is centered on the room. The wall with the fireplace is removed. We actually have a fireplace down here on the club championship wall, and some soft seating around here. So the actual number of seats of this room is about the same as it is right now, which is great. We have a 10-seat, I think, 10 or 12-seat horseshoe bar, which is that epicenter where you can spend time, can talk across it, and have, you have that experience at restaurants you go to all the time where you come in and it's a vibrant atmosphere and the bar is kind of a part of it. And you can go, there are tables that are quieter, certainly removed from the bar, but you still have that energy in the room. You still have that atmosphere, which I think we're lacking some now. So there's a mix of high top seating in here. There's some banquettes. There's some a couple communal tables. The soft seating down by the bar. So again, it just kind of adds to the whole atmosphere of the room. So this is a rendering of the room. Again, I like the design of this, but you notice the bar here, soft seating down around here. Here's one of the communal tables, different, a couple high tops here, banquette seating, and then seating off towards the doors to the deck. Notice the windows are all maintained here on the view of the golf course. So again, the seating capacity is about the same. In these numbers are building the bar, redoing walls, floor, ceiling, the lighting, all of the furniture that's part of these, and building the bar, the equipment. So the cost estimate is about $650,000 as opposed to $700,000 in the last plan. So about the same, but not moving the bar across the room is a little bit of savings. The deck floor is not being redone. It's not part of the plans this time. I will note in these cost estimates include the soft costs, permitting, and the clubhouse of 15% contingency. So a pretty healthy contingency. We wanted to be very realistic with these numbers and provide a good budget. The other thing we've added is a renovation of the lower lobby and the corridor. So without changing that entry sequence, the downstairs is really part of when you walk into the club. So you kind of have to touch that little lobby downstairs, and then you kind of have to touch the hallway, and then you have to touch the whole hallway. So that's part of it, a refresh, walls, carpet. So the investment in the clubhouse project is $1.8 million, which is the same as it was in April. Again, that includes soft costs, all the furniture, equipment, permitting, 15% contingency on the whole project. Going to turn it over to Jim Fickenscher to talk about the financial plans and wrap it up.
Thank you, Eric. Somebody had to draw the short straw and talk about the finances, and they nominated me. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the people who helped us on this plan. There are a lot of people that were involved. We have a finance committee that's got a lot of really dedicated people. All of them helped out. Suzanne Allman, our new corporate controller, was really instrumental in developing the financial model that I'm going to walk you through in just a moment. And I also reached out to a couple of members who are, some of whom are here today or will be here tomorrow, so I appreciate the feedback that we got from everyone. I'm going to start out this evening with just a couple of slides to set things in terms of membership levels and some of our revenues. And then I'm really going to dive into, and what I think we heard and you saw from the survey, is that we were probably nowhere near as transparent in the last plan as we needed to be. And so I'm going to give you a lot more information than you got last time. And I truly hope, I personally believe, I believe that the Finance Committee believes as well, that the project that we're talking about, despite the fact that it's still a $3.2 million project, is something that's very affordable and something that we should all feel comfortable going through. So the first thing is we talk about membership. And I hear this a lot throughout the club, you know, membership is declining, our membership's a problem, you know, it's not what it used to be. And I'm not going to try to tell you that there are not issues, all right? However, I do want to say that, you know, over the last 6 years, we've actually been able to maintain and in fact grow our membership. Some of that was because of the trial programs that we had. We've ended those trial programs now, and the reason why we ended them was that the members tended not to be very sticky. They would stick around while they had the deal, and then when it was time for them to buck up, a lot of them moved on. We did convert a pretty significant number, so it wasn't that it was unsuccessful, but we think that we're really trying to increase the value of our membership and make sure that people are satisfied being here. If you look at the last two sections of this, you've got basically your primary and your limited golfers. And if you look at this, we've been between 270 to 280 primary and limited golfers over the last 6 years. When I look at where we are, these are all numbers as of June 30th. That's the start of the end of one fiscal year, the beginning of the next. It's certainly a time where membership is at its highest, so I'm going to show you some things about the monthly on the next slide that talks about what happens during the year. But what you can see is that at June 30th of 2018, we had 276 members between primary and limited golfers. Now, I wish that this was more 256, 260, right? But it is what it is. The reality is that we have had a lot of members who have decided that they're going to go limited as opposed to primary, and hopefully we can address that and in the future and have a better product where people want to be full-time golfing members. So this is what our monthly membership looks like, all right? So to orient you, this is split up by fiscal year. So our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. And what you can see is that where the black line is, that's June 30th. Those are generally some of the highest points in our membership because people are excited about getting out and playing golf. But you also see that during most years, after the summer is over, we dip down. And that's what's happened this year. Now, we're at 229 members as of December 1st. And that's a low number. I recognize that it's a low number. We'd all like it to be higher. But this is what all the financial modeling is based off of. The starting point for our membership is 229 full-time golfers. And then we're going to assume that we lose some members if we do the project. The other thing that I'd point out is, you know, we have seen an increase. And so some of these members who decided to downgrade really flipped into a limited. It's a little bit less revenue. They pay about 80% of the dues that a full primary member pays, but they're still very good members for us to have. On the other hand, the social memberships have gone up significantly, and I think that a lot of that is due to some of the investments that we made, in particular at the pool bar. I'm going to talk a little bit about how helpful the pool bar was this summer. And what I think that means for us going forward. This looks at member-driven revenue. So Eric talked to you about the banquet, and we saw that we're in a declining situation in the banquet revenues. We really want to turn that around because it helps to subsidize the cost for all of us. But at the end of the day, we've actually maintained pretty stable revenues. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. That's because the bottom bar is dues and fees. That's the balance point. We're a nonprofit club, so our general goal every year is to be about break even on a cash flow basis. The last few years, we've invested a little bit incremental capital because we had built up our cash reserves pretty significantly. So we did some special projects like the dredging of the pond. We did the new deck on the back. We put in the area between the front nine and the back nine. So we've done some additional things in the last couple of years. But generally, we work pretty much at a cash flow break-even level. Debt levels, because that's another thing that we heard from the membership. We can't afford the project that you guys put in front of us. We can't take on that much debt. So I went back and I looked at it to say, well, where have our debt levels actually been? What you can see is that in 2005, we had just more than $4 million in debt. We kind of bumped around a little bit. These were some tough years. The economy wasn't good, so we ended up having to go out and borrow a little bit of money to help pay for some things. In 2013, we restructured what is our current mortgage today, and the amount of that mortgage was just under $3.2 million, $3,157,000. Since that point in time, we've been in a very good position that we're paying off that debt. We haven't restructured the debt, and as of June of 2018, we're just about $2 million in debt. By the time we get to June of next year, it'll be about $1.6 million in debt, and you'll see that we're going to have to refinance this debt as part of this project, and I'll show you exactly what that means for us going forward. So when we're looking at how much money can we borrow, the first thing that we have to do is we have to go out and get an appraisal. The bank requires an appraisal, and when we did the appraisal for the last project, we had someone come out, and we basically asked them to appraise the property under two different methodologies. The first is what's known as an as-is. So what is the value of this property today if we don't do any improvements to the property? And what we heard was that we have an as-is value of about $4 million. Frankly, that's the value of the land. That's if somebody said, if we go out of business, the bank says, I can get $4 million out of the land by selling it to a developer or doing something else. But we also talked to them about what our plan was to invest more money into the clubhouse as well as the banquet facility, and the fact that we would be able to generate incremental revenue and cash flow for the club. And what we saw was that we have an as-improved valuation of $5.2 million. Banks will generally loan you 80% of your appraised value, and so what that means is in the as-improved, we could borrow $4.2 million. On the as-is, we could borrow $3.2 million. So what I will tell you is that most of the increase in that value is due to the improvements that we're making to the club. At the end of the day, the bank likes the fact that we have a good golf course, but what they really care about is what's the cash flow and how much is this property worth on a continuous basis, ongoing basis. So there's a lot of numbers on this chart, but I think it's a critically important chart for all of us to understand. So let me set it up a little bit by telling you that we've looked at a range of projects from $2.8 to $3.8 million. Our project we're proposing is 3.2, so it's pretty close to the numbers in the middle. What we start out with is, what's our balance going to be on our mortgage in April of 2020? Why April 2020? Well, the plan is to do the golf course in the fall, and then we start the construction on the clubhouse in January. It should all be done in the March-April time period. At that point, we'll convert a construction loan into a new mortgage, okay? So what we have to do is we have to pay off our old mortgage. Then we're going to spend, in our plan, $3.2 million. This shows a range of $2.8 to $3.8 million. But we're also going to generate just about $1 million in cash from the members. So as you know, the assessment that we talked about last time, we're using the same model for the assessment this time. We ask people to pay an upfront fee. You have the option of paying an upfront fee and a small amount for the next 15 years, or if you prefer to not have that ongoing monthly, you can pay a larger fee that gives actually a very nice discount if you're in a position where you'd like to do that. So in order to look at what our debt is after the project, we basically have to pay off the old loan, we have to pay for the costs that we're going to put in, we're going to use the members' cash, so 1.4 plus 3.3 minus $1 million leaves us with debt of about $3.7 million. So what does that mean to the club? I recognize that's a big number, you know, $3.6, $3.7 million, it's a lot of debt, right? It's lower than what the bank is telling us they would loan to us for. We actually took the $3.8 million because that maximizes our debt capacity at that $4.2 million. That's the rationale for the $3.8 million project. But then you have to look at it and say, okay, well, if I have somewhere around $3.6 million in debt, what's the cost to the club of having that debt? Well, we have to pay the interest on that loan, and we also have to pay the principal back. Same way that we do with our own home mortgages, right? And the cost for a $3.7 million mortgage in interest and principal, assuming 5 3/4, which is a much higher rate than what we could get today, but because this is a project for April of 2020, we're assuming the Fed will continue to raise rates. And so it's about $367,000. The next line talks about what we're currently paying. So remember, we have that loan that we took out in 2013 that was a $3.1 million loan. The interest on that's only 3.75, but it's a shorter period of a loan. It's an 11-year loan. And so what it's costing us every year is $341,660. So if we do this project at $3.3 million, it won't even be that high. What it costs us incrementally is $25,000. So I really hope that this level of transparency is helpful. You know, I get the fact that we're going back into debt, and it would be nice to not have any debt. But if we don't have debt, we have to get the money from somewhere, and that means us, or not do the projects. The other thing I'll point out on this slide is, if we did a smaller project of $2.8 million, we could actually save $24,000 a year from what we're currently paying in interest and principal. But the difference for every $500,000 going up is about $50,000. To me, the ability to do what Mike suggested for the golf course and what Eric laid out for our clubhouse for $25,000 incremental dollars a year, I think that's really good value for us. So one of the other issues that we heard about in the survey was your assumptions were way too aggressive. Some of that related to, did we have good cost estimates? We've tried to make sure that we have good cost estimates. But what are the other variables that go into it? I'm a finance guy. I do budgets and forecasting all the time. What I can tell you about these numbers is our forecast is wrong. I just don't know how much. It's either a little high or a little low. We've tried to be fairly conservative in our assumptions. And so I want to walk you through what some of those assumptions are. Membership is one of the most critical pieces to this. What we assumed is, off of that number at December 1st, 229 golfers, we're assuming that net, after the vote is done, we're going to lose 5% of our members. Why did we choose 5%? Well, we have been working with chambers, and they have a lot of information about what happens at different clubs across the country when you do different sizes of projects and ask for assessments. And if we had an assessment that was $15,000, $20,000, that number might have to be 15%, 20%. But at the level that we're at, they feel pretty comfortable that 5% is the number that we should use. And so we've assumed that we get a reduction in membership for the first year, and then we get a 3% increase in 19 and 20, 5% the year after that. Now, some people might look at that and say, are you nuts? You really think you're going to get a 3% increase in your membership in the year that we're doing these renovations? Well, I'll tell you what the thinking was of the guys on the finance committee and the board. If we get a positive vote, the people who don't want to pay are going to leave. I wish that they wouldn't. I don't want to see a single member walk out the door, but we know it's a matter of economics, so there will be people who say, that's not for me, I'm unfortunately going to leave. But once you start paying that assessment, I think that our normal attrition that we see on a yearly basis will be significantly lower because we're all invested. We're all waiting for the project to happen. So every year, we get somewhere around 20 to 30 members who join, and unfortunately, the last few years, 25 to 35 members who leave. So that's why our membership is on a slightly descending level. Since the time that we announced that we were going to have the program in January of this year, both before and after the vote occurred, we've had 22 new members join the club as primary golfers, and they wrote us a check for $1,500 with the understanding that they're going to pay another $1,250 towards their assessment, and they're in. We've also had 6 limited members who have joined. So, in my opinion, the net reduction of 5% and a 3% increase, followed by 5%, is something that's very achievable. We know that we have to work on a membership recruitment plan. It's something that's very high priority for the club and for the board, and we'll be continuing to work on that as we move forward. At the end of the day, it's all of us who are responsible for bringing in another person and trying to make this club grow. The next assumptions I want to talk about is food and beverage revenues. So the member, the banquet, lower locker room. We're going to have a situation in 2019-20 fiscal year where our restaurant and our banquet facility are under renovation for 3 to 4 months. That means we're going to lose the revenue from that. So we've assumed in our plans that I'm going to show you in just a minute that we lose 100% of the revenues for these periods of time. We think we can get some of the banquet rescheduled later, but we're basically saying we're going to lose that. Now, I think we could do better than that. I think we could try to schedule things such that we start the renovation in the restaurant and people can come over here and eat. I think the last time that we did the renovations here, we opened up the lower locker room for people to come on a weekend to eat. Those are certainly opportunities that we have. They're not built in to the plan that we have right now. Then in the year that we're done, the first year after the renovations, we've assumed a 10% increase in food and beverage revenues. Again, Chambers has worked on a lot of these plans throughout the country. Their view is that we should see 20 to 30% increase in food and beverage revenues. We've limited it to 10. I work with a guy who's the treasurer at White Marsh Valley Country Club. They just completed a major renovation there of their clubhouse. And in the first 3 months since that was done, their food and beverage revenues are up 31%. And I'm pretty sure it was raining as much at White Marsh Valley Country Club as it was here. So I truly believe that there's an opportunity for us to do significantly better than that between food and beverage revenues. The rest of the items, the expenses, we're starting with our budget. We're assuming essentially that we're going to have 2 to 3% increase cost of inflation over time. And importantly, our capital spend. We spend about $150,000 to $200,000 a year. Last couple of years we spent a little more. Our assumption is that we will spend $150,000 for the balance of this year. We've talked about that and we think that's very achievable if we have a yes vote. We would reduce that number next year. Why are we reducing it? Well, we're doing a major renovation. So the only thing that we really should be spending capital on next year are things like the equipment leases for the golf course. And there may be some other items that come up that we're not expecting, so we have money put aside. But then going forward, our plan is to assume that we can actually grow the amount of capital we spend to about $200,000 a year. So all those assumptions get put into the pot, mixed around, and we see the spreadsheet, and what does it show us? This is a summary of our financial statements for the club. And what you can see is because of the assessments that we're going to receive, that $1.1 million that I talked about that comes from the members, we have significant profits in all of these years. In the first year, net will probably add $400,000 to our cash reserves. The next year, we have to pay for the project. So we have our capital going out, we have the project spend, we have to pay off the old mortgage. The bank gives us the new mortgage, so that's like getting cash in. and then the principal payments, significant increase here is because of the higher interest rate that will play on construction loans as well as a higher rate on the mortgage. At the end of the day, you know, for 2019 and 20, these 2 years cumulatively, we'll have about $234,000 that goes out. So we all recognize that as something that we'd rather not have. But what I want to talk to you about is the fact that today, at June 30th of this year, our cash is always lowest in June, because in July we send out our bills, people start paying their dues, and so it comes up. So our low point this year, we had about $550,000 in cash reserves. We also have a credit line with Univest for $600,000. We haven't touched that in years. But both of those, whether it's the cash reserves or the credit line, should be enough for us to be able to weather this storm, because what you see when you get out to 2020, that first year in, is that we're actually generating $300,000 in cash flow. We've paid off that $230,000 that we lose in that year, and we're on our way to generating incremental revenue and cash going forward. So any good financial planner will tell you, you can't assume that your base case is going to be the one that works. So what happens if things are worse? And oh, by the way, isn't it nice to dream and say what happens if things get better? So what this slide tries to do is it says the items in green basically are the P&L that I just showed you that shows that the 3-year cumulative cash flow in the fourth column is $68,000. If we don't ever get another member in this period, look at the top row, 218 full-time golfing members, we never get another member. We're basically in a similar position. Okay, we have negative cash flow through that year, but I want to point out the fact that the cash flow in 2020-21 is still $133,000 positive. And there's no reason that cash flow can't continue to grow year after year. So in a worst case scenario where we lose 5% of our members, we don't get another member for that period, I still believe that it's something that we can weather. If we look at the bottom line, where our 218 members gets back up to our all-time favorite 250 level, well then we've got $265,000 cumulative cash flow, and in that last year, we're making almost $500,000 in cash. That $500,000 in cash can be used to do other projects that aren't being done here. It can be used to reduce the debt level. It can be used to reduce our dues. So it gives us flexibility, and I think puts us on a really strong financial footing going forward. So this talks about the value of the sand trap bar that we put up at the pool. And in the 2 months that it was open this year, July and August, we saw our revenues go from $30,000 in 17 to $72,000, 137% improvement. Some people would say, yeah, but Jim, that's not really fair, because people weren't going, they went to the pool instead of hanging out downstairs in the grill room. Okay, so let's add that all together. Total member. Some stalwarts that did both. There were some people that did both. But at the end of the day, what you can see is in what I would say was one of the worst weather years that we've ever endured. Our rounds of golf this year are down 15, 16%. We didn't bring a lot of guests. We didn't spend time outside. We were still up 7%. So what does that say to me? That says that 10% increase that we've built into our plans, I think it's pretty solid. Now, on the food and beverage side, this is what we have in our base case. Got $278,000 in profits from food and beverages. If we can hit the midpoint, the low point of what Chamber says, 20% increase in food and beverage, that number goes to $348,000. If we hit the high end, the 30%, it's $419,000. All that's in those numbers that I showed you was the $278,000. So again, do I think that there's more upside than downside? I do believe that there's more upside in the food and beverage than what we have in our plan. So in summary, we talked about the fact that it's a $3.2 million project that we're looking at. 1.8 in the golf course, the clubhouse, 1.4 in the golf course. So let's now talk about the assessment. How did we come up with the amount of the assessment? Well, there's a couple things that we have to fit into when you're taking out debt. The first is we have to have about 20% of the total cost of the project as our share for the bank to loan us that money. So we needed to cover that 25%. We also have to have what's called debt coverage of at least 125%. So that carrying cost of the interest and principal, we need at least 125% of that as dedicated revenues. And this assessment allows us to get both of those items taken care of. We wanted to keep that cumulative cash flow through the end of next year when the facilities are being renovated to a level that we think we can absorb with our current cash reserves or the line of credit. And we wanted to improve the ongoing finances for the club so that we can use that excess cash to accelerate the debt, do additional projects, or change our due structure. So what does it mean to you as a member? And again, in full transparency, we're using the same assessments that we had last time. It's the same size project, and I believe that these are numbers that work well. What we're trying to show here is the cost for different member categories on a monthly basis, because what you see down at the bottom is a primary. If you're using option 1, there's a $2,750 upfront fee assessment, but you can pay that over 12 months. And then there's $45 a month that goes on for the duration of the assessment, which is a 15-year period, the same as the loan. So that means for the first 12 months, somebody like myself would pay $274.16 and then $45 on. You can figure out which category you're in, and that's what it's going to cost you. There's a second option, which allows us to discount the total amount paid over 15 years. So if you're someone who says, I'm going to be here for 7, 8, 9 years, I'd rather not have that ongoing amount, and I'm happy to write a check. Or you could pay that off over 12 months, which means it's going to cost us $541 for 12 months and nothing after that. So that's the assessments that we have included in this. So in conclusion, on the financial plan, we're proposing a $3.2 million project that results in a debt of about $3.6 million, modestly higher than what we've had in our current loan, and certainly lower than what we've experienced in the last 10 to 12 years here at the club. It results in an increased annual cost to the club of $25,000. We believe the assumptions around the membership levels and increased food and beverage are reasonable, and they provide more opportunity to exceed than to fall short. And we believe that the assessments are reasonable. I know that's a very subjective thing. Each of us has a different thing of what's reasonable, but it's up to us, the members, to improve our club. No one else is going to do it for us. So the money has to come from somewhere. So what's our timeline going forward with this program? We're here today and tomorrow to talk about these plans. I know what we will do is review the exit surveys early next month, so we really appreciate you providing us that feedback. And then, if supported, we're looking to go to a membership vote in mid to early January. That timing is important. I don't want it to be seen as we have to do this, you have to vote yes, but the reality is we need to start scheduling the golf course construction and committing to people that we're going to do that in the fall. And so it is important for us to try to get this done as soon as possible. My wrap-up slide for the whole presentation today is there's a lot of areas that need attention. What we've tried to do today is to impact the things that have the highest level of favorability for the club, both in membership and generating incremental revenues. I know that there's a lot of projects that we're not going to do, but at least we're making a good start. We decided to come back with what some of you in this room are probably saying, that's a bold move to come back with the same dollar amount of the project. And oh, by the way, didn't we spend money on the pool? Yes, we did. So, but we look at it and say, it's been a long time since we've done things. 13 years since we built the practice facility, 17 years since we refurbished this building. And our goal is that we think that the club is in a good financial position today. We are a strong club compared to a lot of other golf courses that are out there. And we believe that the debt levels after the project are reasonable and in line with historical levels. And at the end of the day, we hope that you, the members, are going to support this. I know from my point of view, I've been here almost 15 years. So when I joined, this clubhouse had just been refurbished. I've enjoyed the benefits of that for a lot of years. I think that I certainly feel, and I hope that the rest of you feel as well, we need to leave this place better than when we joined. And I think that this program can get that done.